Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be doing my first NFL mock draft of the season. This is going to be the first one. I'm probably going to do a second one. Probably going to try and do it either the day before or the day of the actual NFL draft, early that morning or late the night before. So we'll see if I can get that one out at the perfect time. But this will be the first one of the offseason. If you want to see some other mock drafts I've done with the guys on the Backfield Buzz, check out the Hive Podcast Network. We've done 2 so far for this season. Probably going to do a couple more. Probably have some Dynasty fantasy football content coming out shortly. We're going to try and work in some different off-season things to moving forward here. So if you want more NFL content, be sure to check that out. But we'll jump right into this mock draft with the first overall pick. Tennessee Titans are on the clock, and I think at this point it's become pretty clear who this pick is going to be. I think all signs are pointing towards Cam Ward being the first player off the board. The Titans seem pretty enamored with him over at the Miami Pro Day, and they seem to be no longer looking to trade the pick. I think everything looks to be a Cam Ward pick here. I don't see anything saying otherwise, so I think Cam Ward is going to be the pick there. And then at number 2 is where things start to get a little more up in the air. I think a lot of the top 5 picks are pretty clear as to what the teams are looking for. Cleveland isn't one of those teams. They could go Shedeur Sanders, but I think they're going to lean Abdul Carter. I think a lot of people are questioning this decision if they go Abdul Carter as to why would you take an edge rusher nobody's ever won because they have an edge rusher at the top 5 pick. That's just not true, first of all, because plenty of teams are winning because of what they do in the trenches. Games are won and lost in the trenches. And the same can be said that no team's ever won because they reached on a quarterback with a low ceiling. That's what Shedeur Sanders is, to be totally blunt, he's a low ceiling, high floor quarterback who could be accurate, he can be a good game manager for you, but no team's ever won or no team's ever succeeding by taking one of those guys second overall. The teams you do see win with those guys are guys that are taking them like Brock Purdy late in the rounds, like the Eagles grabbing Jalen Hurts in the second round, not paying them very much. That's the other thing to consider here for Cleveland. If you're drafting a quarterback, the biggest benefit to having a rookie quarterback is the contract. 5 years, low cap hit, especially for quarterbacks, and it's totally controlled. In that time, you're able to build such a good roster around and give your team the best chance to win. Look at what the Texans are trying to do right now with CJ Stroud. They have him on this rookie deal. They're trying to just build around him, make big splash moves. Same thing as over in Washington with the Commanders and Jane Daniels. You got to capitalize on the rookie contract. So for Cleveland, you wouldn't be able to do that because you can't capitalize on Shedeur's rookie deal because Deshaun Watson's backing him up for a guaranteed $45 million every year. That's fully guaranteed. You can't cut him and get rid of that money. That money is there no matter what. So you're losing the entire upside of drafting a quarterback at this high, and you're not getting a quarterback that has a particularly high ceiling either. So to me, makes no sense. Pairing Abdul Carter with Myles Garrett for the next 5 years, though, makes plenty of sense. That duo would wreak havoc in the league. I think you'll be pretty bad again next year and take a shot at a quarterback in next year's class and already have this elite edge rusher duo to go with it. Now at 3, it seemed like a lock about a week ago that the Giants were going to take a quarterback and that if Shedeur was there, he'd be their guy. Not the case anymore. They signed Jameis Winston, and then they also signed Russell Wilson. If they had just signed one of those two, I could see it. But now, no way. No, you don't sign both of those quarterbacks with the intention of drafting one this high. I think they're looking to run a team led by Russell Wilson. For whatever reason that is, I'm not 100% sure. But at the same time, I kind of understand. You get Russell on a 1-year deal, and next year they go take a shot at a quarterback as well. It makes sense for them in that regards. So now with no quarterback, you're not taking Shedeur Sanders and sitting him for a year because he doesn't need development time like that. He's a pretty polished prospect there's no big athletic traits that you need to hone in on like a guy like Drake May had or a guy like Anthony Richardson has. You're putting him in and you're starting him. So with that off the table, I think you go with Travis Hunter here at number 3. I think they need a cornerback, and they need a receiver. He does both, and at a pretty elite level. This is a team where you can give Travis Hunter that shot to play both sides of the ball and see what he's able to do, see if he's able to physically do it at the next level. But either way, I think you're coming away with, at worst, a great number 2 next to Malik Neighbors, or your cornerback one of the future. So either way, you've got a great option here with Travis Hunter. There's no going wrong. So I love this fit in New York. And then at number 4, if this is the way the board falls, I can really see the Patriots trading back. I think if a team is really looking for Shedeur Sanders, which I don't think they are, I think Shedeur is going to probably slip in this mock. And as I've mapped it out. But I think a team could be looking to hop over a couple other teams, maybe if they do want Shedeur Sanders. And I think the Patriots will be looking to trade back because a lot of the top players available right now aren't the ones they're looking for. I think a lot of the guys they want, they'll be able to get later in the draft. But no trades in this mock, so just sticking and picking. At number 4, Patriots are going to take Will Campbell. He's still, in my opinion, the best O-line prospect in this draft. The Patriots have done a little bit to shore up their O-line, done a little bit to shore up little things everywhere. They've kind of done an okay job all around, but it's still very clearly a need on that offensive line, especially when you look at the left side. They don't really have anyone there right now, and there is question marks on whether Will Campbell can play tackle or not, but if he can't play tackle, there's an opening there at left guard as well, and he's got the talent to be able to do both. So no real question marks there on Will Campbell. I think that would be a real good fit over in New England. Moving on, though, to the 5th overall pick, and this is a pick I'm pretty confident is going to be the pick at the time. I think Mason Graham, odds are he makes it to number 5, and if he's not there, I don't see the Jaguars passing him. Yes, they have lots of needs all over their roster, but they were getting no pressure from their interior all season long, despite investing a decent chunk into it with Eric Armstead coming in, but nothing was working from the interior. They've got 2 good edge rushers, and Trayvon Walker had a solid season, even though he's on the trade market for some reason. And then Josh Hines-Allen is obviously a premier edge rusher in the league. You put Mason Graham between those two, you get yourself a pretty elite pass rush. And I think Mason Graham is pretty clearly one of the top players, if not the top player on the board at this point in the draft. At 6, the Raiders can go a ton of different directions. To me, this is where the draft really gets interesting. Whatever the Raiders do here can really determine how the rest of the board falls moving forward, because they could use a player at almost every single position on the football field. Unironically, they won't take quarterback and they won't take a tight end, and that's really the only 2 positions you can rule out for the Raiders. They don't have a particularly good receiver room. They probably have the worst running back room in the league. Their O-line has pieces, but it's not whole. They have Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins, but they don't have anyone to go alongside them, so you can always use more support on the D-line. Their linebackers, they lost Robert Spillane this offseason. They signed Jeremy Chin, who's a solid safety, but they could use another safety next to him, and they have really no cornerbacks. So you can go anywhere here. The board is completely open. In that case, I'm going with best player available, and to me that is Ashton Jeanty. I think their run game was absolutely just abysmal last year, and bringing in Geno Smith gives me the impression they want to try and get a good offense going here. I think you need to have a run game to lean on in case the pass game isn't available. If Brock Bowers is shut down, their offense would fall flat on his face right now. At least this gives you an alternative route to go to. I think Chip Kelly, the new offensive coordinator, is definitely someone who leans heavily on his run game like he did back at Ohio State, which is something that is important to consider because I could very well see the Raiders passing on Jeanty here and taking one of the Ohio State running backs at the top of the 2nd round. So that's definitely something to consider. But to me, with all these different needs, you take DPA, and that is Ashton Jeanty, in my opinion. Next up, the New York Jets. They have got a decent chunk of needs. They're a team that could be on the Shedeur Sanders could be on the table for them with this pick. It wouldn't shock me at all to see the Jets make that move. But they just signed Justin Fields. I imagine they want to see what he's got. They paid him a decent chunk of money. So I think they want to see what they got and in Justin Fields. And also, they have no tight end. Jeremy Ruckert is not a starting tight end in the league. So if you want to see what you got in your quarterback, I think they get a tight end. And Tyler Warren is also just happens to be probably the best player on the available at this position here. I think he's a great fit over in New York. I think he'll be a really good weapon for them to have in all facets of the offense. Next up, pick 8, the Carolina Panthers. I think you're looking at a defensive player, no matter what. Whether that's any position, and honestly, you could think of any position on the defensive side of the football, and I think they're going to take it. For me, though, I'm going to be going with Jalen Walker. I think he gives you the versatility that you want in a player for a defense like this. They have lots of needs all over the football field. So Jalen Walker can fill all those needs. He can rush the passer. He can drop back into coverage as a linebacker. He can really, if you want to transition him into a pure edge rusher, he can do that. But he can also be a good coverage linebacker. I think having that flexibility is going to be massive for a team trying to revamp what was the worst defense in football last year. So Jalen Walker's an easy pick. Could go with a DB, could go with an edge rusher here. Wouldn't surprise me, but I like the fit of Jalen Walker in Carolina. At number 9, the New Orleans Saints. They are another team that has a decent chunk of needs. They go a lot of different places with this pick. I think Teteroa McMillan has been mocked here quite a bit. I'm not going to go that route here. Paulson Adebo left in the offseason. They have a serious need at nickelback, and I think Johnny Barron fits that need perfectly. Fits like a glove. They need a lot of help in the secondary in general. Barron projects as a potentially could drop back in a little bit of safety, but as a main nickel guy, and they don't really have a nickel corner right now. I think he's a perfect fit here, and I think in my opinion, I think he's become. I'm not sure if I would have him higher than Will Johnson in my personal rankings. It's pretty tight. But I think the consensus has risen on Barron after the combine and after the end of the season. I think he's done a lot to improve himself after Will Johnson had kind of a subpar draft year. Moving on to the Chicago Bears here at number 10. Really a tough spot. It was just a tough choice. I could see them taking a shot on Marion Hampton at this pick here. Ben Johnson loves his running backs. It would make a ton of sense. And I don't think DeAndre Swift is exactly an elite level running back for what Ben Johnson typically looks for, what he was looking for how he ran his offense over in Detroit. But the other thing about the offense over in Detroit and the defense in Detroit that Ben Johnson is certainly aware of is how good they were in the trenches. And the Bears right now aren't very good. You've seen them go out and make tons of splash moves on their offensive line, getting Drew Dalman making the highest paid center in the league, getting or one of the highest paid centers, I believe. He might have the most per year. And then going out and trading for Jonah Jackson, who played a little bit. I think he overlapped with Ben Johnson a bit over in Detroit. And then obviously Joe Thuney, the all-pro guard, one of the best guards in football, to help protect the O-line. They got Darnell Wright, their first overall pick last year. I think they're pretty comfortable with Braxton Jones over on the left side. So I think they avoid O-line, but they need help on the D-line too. And again, you saw what the Bears with the Lions did with Aiden Hutchinson. I think the Bears will be looking for something similar. They do have Montez Sweat, and they did sign a couple of guys along their D-line. I still like the fit of a defensive lineman, and I'm going to take Shamar Stewart with this pick. I loved him. He obviously, athletic freak, I think, is the first thing you point out with Shamar Stewart. Yes, the numbers weren't all there. They but that's not everything in a prospect. You got to look at the traits, and Shamar Stewart has traits in spades. He has the best traits of probably almost any player in this draft class. Just a pure athletic freak, had a crazy good combine, but also was productive in a run-stopping role and a disruptive role over in Texas at Texas A&M. He wasn't just a pure passer who just got sacks and sacks and sacks. He had a lot of different roles in that defense that didn't quite allow him to get that kind of production you'd expect. But I think he had a really good track record, and I think he's rising rightfully so up boards. I think this is a good fit over in Chicago to hone in those skills. At pick 11, the 49ers lost a ton of pieces this offseason, but they've lost a ton on the O-line. I think taking Armand Membu here at 11 makes a ton of sense. Membu's a guy who has question marks if he's going to stick a tackle. I think he's going to stick a tackle, though, at this point. And if not, the Niners have needs on the interior as well, so a lot of flexibility in that regard. I think they could really use an upgrade on the offensive line, especially after losing Aaron Banks and Jalen Moore to free agency. But honestly, another team that you could see going a lot of different directions because they lost a ton of pieces in free agency. But Membu is also just kind of BPA at this spot. Next up, this is kind of starting a run of tackles, is the Dallas Cowboys grabbing Kelvin Banks Jr. here, keeping the Texas player in the state of Texas to play right tackle for your Dallas Cowboys. I think they're out on a running back. I think that's been the message has been sent all offseason in Dallas is that they are not going to take a running back. As much as Marion Hampton would be a great fit in Dallas, I don't think that's what they're going to do. They signed Javonte Williams, they signed Miles Sanders. Those aren't really splashy, big signings, no. But it sends a message. Those are the guys they want to run with. And you sign two of the same position in the offseason. I don't see you addressing it with another pick here at this point in the draft. I think they need to upgrade over Terrence Steele at right tackle. I think Kelvin Banks will be that. I think you stick Tyler Guyton at left tackle. You can even flip them if you want. You put Guyton at right and Banks at left. And you have Tyler Smith on the interior. Those are really your only surefire pieces on the O-line for Dallas. So they need help there. So I like this fit a lot. Could also see them addressing the secondary, but with Kelvin Banks on the board and the needed O-line, I think it just makes too much sense. Then another O-lineman going here to Miami. This is just a no-brainer. The Dolphins need to protect Tua at all costs. That should be their number one goal this offseason. They haven't really signed many O-linemen this offseason. I think Josh Simmons being here is a great fit. He can play beside Teron Armstead on the right side there. So I really do like the fit there, or they can flip back and forth as Teron Armstead's done a little bit. I don't think Austin Jackson is really stopping you from taking a tackle here. The O-line has not been good in Miami. It's part of the reason why their run game wasn't so successful this year, and it's why Tua keeps getting hit. And you want to prevent him from getting hit as much as possible, considering all of his concussion issues in the past. At pick 14, the Colts are a little annoyed. I'd imagine that Tyler Warren's not there. I think it's the exact player that they would like to have in that offense to help Anthony Richardson develop, but he's not there. However, Colston Loveland is no slouch either, so they take the shot on him. They need a tight end so desperately, like so badly. They do not have a tight end in this offense, and to me, this is a prove-it year for Anthony Richardson. And if you want to have your quarterback with all this upside, you want to give him a prove-it year, you got to at least give him a fighting chance with the offense. They've got a great running back in Jonathan Taylor. Their O-line has lost a couple pieces, still overall a good O-line, and they have good receivers with Downs and Pittman and Adonai Mitchell and Alec Pierce. That can be a good room. They have no tight end, and you saw that was such a problem for their offense last year, and it's also such a problem for young quarterbacks. Young quarterbacks' favorite target is the big, reliable guy up the middle. Colston Loveland can be that guy. He also has experience catching passes from not so reliable quarterbacks in Michigan last year, so he's got some experience in that regard. But I think the best way to develop young quarterbacks is giving them a tight end to build rapport with, to give them the middle of the field, to be that big target that if they miss it a little high, a little wide, the tight end can go up and get it and just be that reliable guy that just catches almost everything thrown at them. A-Rich needs that. He needs that underneath route to hone in on, because that's been what he struggles with, is the 5-yard ins, the over the middle kind of stuff. He can hit a deep shot like nobody's business, but when you're asking him to complete a 10-yard in, things get a little rocky for him. So giving him Colston Loveland can be a really good thing for his development moving forward if you want to give him the chance to be your franchise quarterback. At number 15, you got the Atlanta Falcons. This has got to be defense. I could see a receiver, though. They don't really have a receiver 3 right now beyond Drake London. They really don't have a great receiver. Like, they've Darnell Mooney. That's not a great receiver 2 either. So I could see a receiver here. But Atlanta needs to address defense. They have been one of the worst teams at registering sacks in the league for the past few years, and they keep passing and passing and passing on edge rushers. They passed someone last year to Michael Penix. Michael Penix looks good, so it's kind of worked out, but they need an edge rusher or a defensive player in some regard. So I'm going to go Jahad Campbell, recruited as an edge rusher to Alabama, played linebacker there, but he's a great blitzing linebacker, can be also great in coverage, super dynamic. They even need a linebacker as well, everywhere on the defense, really. So I like the fit a lot. I think he'll be a very versatile player for Atlanta to work into their defense. Next up, we got the Arizona Cardinals at 16. Another team with quite a few different needs. I think you're looking at in the trenches or probably going to secondary with the way the board has fallen. I really like Kenneth Grant here. I think they need help along the defensive line, but they've invested quite a bit of assets into the edge side of things with Darius Robinson as their first-round pick last year. They signed Josh Sweat this offseason. They got B.J. Ojulari coming off of injury. I believe he was a second-round pick as well. So you need to put some interior help there. I think Kenneth Grant, just a pure, big nose tackle run stuffer, can be a perfect fit there. Gives you the versatility to run those other guys as you wish, and he just up the middle, just going to stuff the run and create havoc through the interior. I really like the fit in Arizona. At 17, another team that just needs defense at all costs. That's the Cincinnati Bengals. They signed T and Chase to massive contracts. They're paying those two plus Burrow, I think it was 45% of their salary cap. Trey Hendrickson wants out. They need a defensive player like nobody's business, and they've dug themselves quite a hole with the way they've negotiated their contracts. But they've had an elite defensive player fall into their lap in this case. I think they want probably an edge rusher more than anything, but Will Johnson has just fallen into their lap there, and their secondary is definitely not good enough to pass on a player like that. I think he can be their CB1. I think Cam Taylor-Britt works better as a CB2. Will Johnson, if he shows off what he showed in his 2023 season, will be an elite corner in this league for sure. So I think it's a really good fit there in Cincinnati. They need some help. And I think I like Will Johnson more than the top edge rusher on the board, which in my opinion would be Mykel Williams. So I think Will Johnson gets you a better fit there. Next up, the Seattle Seahawks picking at 18. They have a definite need along the O-line, and John Schneider, he doesn't have a tendency, their GM doesn't have a tendency to draft or invest in the interior of the O-line, but I think he's going to have to this year. I think he can't avoid it. They've done a good job of filling out some of their other holes. Their edge rushers are really solid now. Picking up DeMarcus Lawrence is a good fit. Could go safety, could go secondary there. Wouldn't be opposed to it, but I don't think it's a good idea. You lost DK and Tyler Lockett, but you signed Cooper Kupp. You lost Geno, but you signed Sam Darnold. They filled all their other holes. They have not done anything to address the interior of that O-line, which was unironically the worst in football last year. And it doesn't help that Charles Cross has had some injury issues. Abraham Lucas has massive injury issues. Both of them are great when they play, but that has been a little few and far between lately. I'm going to give him Gray Zabel. I think Gray Zabel is the perfect dynamic offensive lineman you can put into this system. He can play guard for you, which is what I think he's slotted immediately as the guard. But if Abe Lucas goes down, I think Gray Zabel can go out and play tackle. If Charles Cross goes down, same sort of thing. So it gives you that flexibility. Also keeps Stone Forsythe off the field, who has not had a lot of success, is putting it lightly. In Seattle, he has not been having a great career there. So you really got to just try and help this O-line, especially when you consider what Sam Darnold did last year. Part of the reason he was so good in Minnesota, and this has been the biggest thing people are talking about, is because his O-line was so good and he had elite weapons. Well, the elite weapons are there with JSN and Cooper Kupp, but we've yet to see what this new Sam Darnold will look like behind a bad O-line. And I think if you test that and it backfires on you, you've dug yourself a massive hole. So give him the O-line, try to relieve some of that pressure, because we know when he's done under pressure, Sam Darnold can dice up a defense. When he's under pressure, he tends to make some dumb mistakes, some poor decisions, and that results in a lot of bad turnovers. So you keep him protected, you're going to have yourself a great quarterback. Next up, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, another team picking in this range that would love a defensive player. A couple of the guys I think would make sense for them have gone off the board. They need some help in the secondary. They could use a linebacker. I think Jahad Campbell would have been a perfect fit here in Tampa Bay, but I love the fit almost even more of Nick Eamon-Warry lining up next to Antoine Winfield, immediately creating one of the best safety duos in football. Antoine Winfield, over the top, great free safety who can take away the deep shots. Nick Eamon-Warry can do everything. He can do that. He can drop back into coverage if you want him to, but it gives you that flexibility to line him up almost anywhere on that defense, have him rush the passer, have him be this aggressive, blitzing, run stopping. Just he can do it all. He's a very, like, again, I said this over on the Backfield Buzz, but you're getting to like the comparison is kind of crazy, and it's coming from a Ravens fan. Kyle Hamilton light, like not quite the same physical stature or physicality of Kyle Hamilton, but he has better athletic traits and he is much quicker to the ball and has probably a little better ball skills. Kyle Hamilton doesn't have the craziest ball skills because he's more of just a hard hitting safety. But Nick Eamon-Warry doesn't, what he lacks in strength that Kyle Hamilton may have, he makes up for it in some ball skills. I think he's a very versatile safety and can play almost anywhere on the field, just like what the Ravens have done with Hamilton. It's been super successful. I think this would be a great fit in Tampa Bay. Next up at pick 20, the Denver Broncos. I think they've done a ton to invest in what was already a great defense this offseason. They've filled it out wonderfully. That defense is going to be lights out. They've given Bo Nix a new target with Evan Ingram. That's a great pickup as well. And they have some solid receivers, and they need a running back. They lost Javonte Williams, and they haven't brought anyone in to fill a role in that running back room. All they have is Audric Estime and Jaleel McLaughlin. Those two weren't very dynamic last year. Didn't really create a great run game. But Amari and Hampton can be dynamic and would be a great fit over in Denver. I think that would be a perfect piece to complement the way this offense already looks. I really love Amari and Hampton in Denver. This fit is perfect. I think Amari and Hampton's a borderline top 15. He's probably a top 15. You know, I've seen people put him in the top 10 of pure players in this draft, but he slips because of positional value. And Denver gets a great piece landing right in their lap. And now, since there hasn't been a quarterback needy team in like 10 picks, almost forget Shedeur Sanders is still on the board, but the Pittsburgh Steelers, they luck out here and they get him at pick 21. I think odds are, if Shedeur starts living this far, a trade-up is very possible for some of these teams in need of a quarterback. There's been a lot of talk what the Steelers are going to do. They still have yet to sign a quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is still available. That's been something that's rumored to go Pittsburgh's way. They've also been in talks to get Jackson Dart at this pick. I've heard rumors they might take Jalen Milroe at this pick. A lot of things are up in the air for what the Steelers are going to do at the quarterback position because they have not addressed it yet. In this mock, though, Shedeur Sanders falls to you at 21. You run that card in. I'm not the biggest Shedeur Sanders guy, but I know this is a great value pick for the Steelers here at pick 21, and it fills a massive, massive need. Next up, the Cardinals, the Los Angeles Chargers here at pick 22. They need to get a new weapon for Justin Herbert. You could look at a couple places. Maybe you go D-line. That's not a bad thing. I could see Jim Harbaugh making that choice as well. He loves building through the trenches. But I think you need a weapon for Herbert. I think Ladd McConkey was a perfect pickup last year. He's been so big for their offense. They brought back Mike Williams, but he's got injury issues. And then you've also got Quentin Johnson, who had a bit of a better year last year, but still had serious issues with holding onto the football. Tetairoa McMillan has slipped far enough. The Chargers stop that slide here and pick him up at pick 22. To me, he is very similar to Quentin Johnston in the build, but I think he's got better hands and is overall just a better receiver prospect and a better player than Quentin Johnston is, and it would be a really good fit next to Ladd McConkey, because I don't think Quentin Johnston has panned out, and also Mike Williams does not factor into my long-term plans at all. So I think this is a great duo to have for Herbert moving forward in that receiver room. Next up, the Green Bay Packers at 23. They're for the talks of them needing a one receiver all offseason. 3 of them are on the board here. You've got Luther Burden, you got Matthew Golden, and you've got Emeka Egbuka. I think Luther Burden is going to be my pick here because I think he's got the best potential to be a number 1. I think Matthew Golden is going to be a great number 2. I think Emeka Egbuka is going to be a great number 2. They are both safer picks than Luther Burden, in my opinion, because surefire, like Egbuka spent the extra year in college. It has been great at Ohio State, sure hands, good route runner, just overall good at everything, not great at anything. I could say the same thing about Matthew Golden. He's got pretty good speed though. Although he doesn't play at the 40 time he ran. He doesn't play at that kind of speed wise. Has amazing hands, probably the best hands in this draft class. But I don't think either of them quite have what it takes to be a 1. I can see Luther Burden's skill set developing into a number 1 receiver. I don't think the Packers need another safe, good, reliable target. They have that already. They need a guy who can be a game breaker, who can break open, stretch the field. I think Luther Burden's explosiveness can do that for them. Next up, the Minnesota Vikings. They've lost a couple pieces this offseason, but I think they're in a pretty good spot here with this pick. They could go and try and get a piece on the O-line. They lost a couple pieces there, but I don't think that's where they're going to look. They've done a good job of filling out the interior D-line, picking up Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, both really good pickups there. They've still got the great edge rushers, but they lost a lot in the secondary. They brought back Harrison Smith for 1 more year, but their free safety is Theo Jackson. I don't think that's really going to do anything for you. And Harrison Smith's got 1 to 2 years left in a max. Malachi Starks is here. I still view him as a top 10 player in this draft. I am almost as all in as you can get on Malachi Starks. I think he's a total stud, but he's slipping in mocks all over the NFL community, so it seems likely that he falls to this point. But I think the Vikings need serious help in the secondary, and passing on Malachi Starks would be a big-time mistake. So I like this fit a ton. I think to think of what the things Brian Flores can work out for Malachi Starks is it's going to be a Vikings fan dream. This is going to be a really good fit there in that defense. The Houston Texans up at 25. Emeka Egbuka, who played with CJ Stroud in college, is on the board. They need a receiver, but I'm not going to go there. They need O-line just so much more. They've lost Laremy Tunsil. Their O-line was already bad last year. They lost the best player. I'm going to go and take Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State here. Donovan Jackson has played all over the line for the Ohio State Buckeyes this past season. He started in at guard. When Josh Simmons went down to injury, he played over at tackle, and he did a very solid job at tackle. So he can do a little bit of everything for you, and that's what the Texans need. They don't have really a set O-line for next year. They've done a couple pickups to make it a little bit better. It's not as bad as it was at the start of the offseason when they traded Tunsil. They picked up Trent Brown to play right tackle, Cam Robinson to play left tackle, got Laken Tomlinson. All 3 of those guys have had ups and downs, more downs than ups lately, to be totally honest. And they're all on 1-year deals. So, they're not long-term pieces. You have Titus Howard, who's okay. You invested in Drew Scruggs. None of those guys have been really that good. I think Donovan Jackson's the perfect player that wherever the hole comes up on this offensive line, wherever the issues arise, he can fill it. He can play guard, he can play tackle, he can be your versatile guy who can fill any sort of gaps you have. Any injuries come up if players aren't performing, I think immediately he slots in as your right guard. ahead of Drew Scruggs. And, if Trent Brown isn't working or Cam Robinson isn't working, you can kick him out to tackle and let him work out there. But I really like Donovan Jackson as a prospect. I think it's a really good fit over in Houston. Next up, the LA Rams at pick 26. I think their biggest need is probably linebacker, but with the two top guys off the board, I don't think you reach on Carson Schwessinger, probably the next best linebacker at this pick here. I think they need a corner as well, and they need a corner who can tackle. And I'm going to go with Trey Amos. I don't think he's necessarily the best corner, just pure cover corner at this point, at this spot. You got Maxwell Harrison, who ran the fastest 40 among cornerbacks. Savone Revel, I think, is one of the top guys, and Azariah Thomas is also another top guy. But Trey Amos is the best tackling cornerback, and as much as they lacked coverage, all these guys are great cover guys. The Rams lacked cornerbacks who would come in and stop the run, which is kind of weird to say, but you saw how they got destroyed by Saquon Barkley every time they played him. It's because nobody at the second level could make a tackle. Obviously, they didn't have a lot of linebacking help, and they're going to try and address that. I just think this is the spot to do it. But they also didn't have cornerbacks who would come in and make those tackles. So I think getting a guy looking at what asset you need the most in a cornerback right now, it is tackle. And all these guys are great cover guys, so you're not sacrificing a ton of coverage ability for that tackling cornerback, but I think Amos is a good fit here because of the way he's able to wrap up. Next up at pick 27, I have yet to, this is the first mock I've done where this player has made it to the Ravens at 27, and I am all over it. Mykel Williams to Baltimore at pick 27. I love this fit. I think the Ravens need a splash edge rusher, and they also have made it a statement of their organization, as much as it hasn't shown in recent years. They do not like drafting guys with character concerns, and Mike Green has the allegations in his past that are true or untrue. Nobody really knows yet. That's yet to come out. And then James Pierce Jr. has well-documented character concerns from his locker room over at Tennessee. So those are things that Ravens tend to avoid when drafting a player. And I also do think Mykel Williams is a better player than both of those two. Played most of the year this year, Georgia injured, and still was able to put up some pretty good numbers and was just an overall great edge rusher for them. So I'm in love with this fit because that's the biggest thing for the Ravens is they need an edge rusher. They do. But they don't need another guy because Odafe Owe is a guy, Kyle Van Noy is a guy, David Ojable's a guy, Latavius Robinson's a guy, Adisa Isaac's a guy. They just have a bunch of guys who are solid, but they need a game wrecker, a guy who can just take over a game and make a quarterback's day hell. That's what I think Mykel Williams can be. I think Mike Green and James Pierce Jr. also have that ability. However, the character concerns lead me to say the Ravens would lead Mykel Williams, along with the fact that I have him rated higher on my board. And next up, the Detroit Lions, another team who needs an edge rusher badly to pair alongside Aiden Hutchinson. You saw how bad their pass rush was when he went down with injury. They haven't brought back Shedeur Smith yet. And even with Shedeur Smith, it still wasn't the same. You need someone alongside Aiden Hutchinson, take some of the pressure off of him. I'm going to take Mike Green here. Had the most sacks in college football over at Marshall. He was an absolute freak. He's just a wrecker off the edge. I think he'd be a monster in the Detroit system. And at 29th, the Commanders, another edge rusher off the board. The run goes here as James Pierce Jr. goes to the Commanders, was looked at as viewed as the first overall pick heading into the year, has slipped. I don't think it's because of play, because he played really well this year. I think a lot of it has to do with one, character concerns is playing into it, but I think it's a little bit of prospect fatigue, but I do think he's an overall he's a better player than this pick suggests, this pick 29 suggests. But I think it's a great fit. I think the Commanders have a definite need on the defensive side of the football. They've addressed a couple other spots. I think edge is where they really need the biggest help. At pick 30, the Buffalo Bills, I think you're probably looking defense. They get a lot of solid guys everywhere, but a little upgrade wouldn't hurt. Walter Nolan, another guy who has some character concerns coming out, but overall is an elite talent. He was one of the top high school recruits coming out. I think he was only behind Travis Hunter when he got recruited to Ole Miss out of his high school class. I think he's a good fit here in Buffalo. They need help along the interior. They signed a couple of guys like Michael Hecht and Larry Ogunjobi, both of whom are suspended for 6 games. So you're going to need some help in the meantime. Walter Nolan can be that and can be your long-term solution in the interior next to Ed Oliver. I like this fit quite a bit to get them some extra added pressure. Next up, the Kansas City Chiefs. Sitting at 31, you got to go O-line. The O-line was abysmal for them in the Super Bowl. It got destroyed by the Eagles. And you're you lost Joe Thuney this offseason already. So it's been sort of similar to the way that the Texans were, where their O-line was not good when it counted, and they lost one of the best pieces of that O-line. They still have Creed Humphrey, though, and they still have Trey Smith, so that'll be solid. They went out and signed Jalen Moore. I don't think Jalen Moore is all that, but they gave him money to suggest he's probably going to be starting, and they still have Juwan Taylor. Doesn't rule out guard or tackle, though. They could take Josh Connerly here, who is probably the best tackle on the board, but they don't really have a set left guard yet to replace Joe Thuney. So I'm going to take Tyler Booker here at pick 31. Just a bully on the O-line. The start of the draft process after the season ended, he skyrocketed up boards because the tape and some of the stuff he'd shown, what people have seen, and the way they talked about him, with the way he just loves football. That's what that was the biggest. That was also the biggest thing that came out of his combine, was just the way this guy talks about football. He loves just being a wrecker from the interior, just shoving guys on their ass all day long. He loves it. But he then slipped back down because he didn't have a great athletic showing at the combine. However, that's kind of what you expected of him. Nobody was expecting Tyler Booker to have a real elite combine athletically, but he didn't. He had a pretty bad combine athletically, so it was a little subpar. But overall, you still have he's still a mauler in the interior despite any athletic concerns. And then lastly, the Philadelphia Eagles, and in typical Philadelphia Eagles fashion, they look into a lot of options here at the 32nd overall pick. The top ones to stand out are all guys you could see Howie Roseman taking, really. You look at, obviously, he loves building in the trenches, and you've got Donovan Ezeraku right here. You got Derek Harmon right here. I think both those could be picks. They haven't gotten a tackle yet to be the successor to Lane Johnson if he retires within the coming years. So you can take Josh Connerly, you could take Nick Scorton, but I'm going to take more of maybe a fun option per se. I also just can't see having all these receivers at the bottom of the first round with Emeka Egbuka and Matthew Golden. I'm going to take Matthew Golden here, the surefire hands as your receiver 3, next to Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. Just be that more reliable target. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are really very reliable, but yeah, Matthew Golden in that mix. Bit of a speed guy. We saw his speed at the 40s, but he doesn't play at that speed in game time. Still good to know he has it in his bag. And again, great hands, great hands, and had a really good end of the year over in Texas. So love the fit there. They could go a lot of different routes with that 32nd overall pick. Maybe they trade back. That'd be a very Philly thing to do as well. But I like the fit here of Matthew Golden to Philly. That'll do it for this mock draft. Let me know if you agree or disagree with who I picked for your team, if you think they'd go a different route depending on the way the board looked, if you think someone went too high, someone went too low. Let me know down below in the comments. I'll be sure to respond. I love having little discussions on what other people's opinions are on certain things. It's always fun to do. Yeah, that'll do it for this video. Be sure to subscribe and like to see more content. I'll have a little bit more coming out. Obviously, I mentioned I'm going to have a mock draft coming out really close to draft time, either that night or it'll be uploaded in the morning. I'll either record it that night or record it that morning, so get it out with as accurate information as possible, with all the rumors that tend to come out right before the draft day, that tend to make your mock drafts a lot more accurate. So I'll try and have that out, and I'm also going to be working on some NHL content. Want to get some NHL prospect content done, whether it's mock drafts or some other stuff like that. So I'll be working on some of that over the next couple months. So be sure to subscribe to see some more, but that'll do it, and I'll see you in the next one.